Hello and welcome to another edition of The Mo Show on the Real Estate Success Network. I'm your host, Mike Oden, and today I have a very, very special guest on our call. I'm actually going to let him introduce himself, but I'll just kind of give you a little bit of background, guys. This gentleman is somebody who's a member of a couple of Facebook groups that I participate in, and we just happened to somehow come across each other's paths. I thought it'd be great for us to get on the Mo Show and just to really have a conversation, a meet and greet, give each other the opportunity to meet one another and give you, our audience, an opportunity to meet us. So with that being said, Geoff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael. It's really great to be on your show and to talk with you in person. I'm looking forward to the next 30 minutes or so.
Cool. I as well. Geoff, I did a little bit of research in preparation for this call. When I have folks on my call, honestly, I don't do a whole lot of digging simply because I want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves to me and what it is, that they have going on from a business standpoint, and really kind of get their message out there. I'm big on social media, but I'm not big on making a determination or decision on who somebody is without talking to them. So that's why I wanted to give us the opportunity to get on the phone and really get a chance to meet. So you're my guest, and I want to give you the chance to tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you live now, et cetera?
Well, I'm from New Zealand originally, so I was brought up a long way away from where I am now, which is we're based in Los Angeles. So
okay.
I've seen a bunch of the world, and I'm married to a lovely lady. Her name's Athalia, and we've got a young son called Gabriel. And so, we're based just in the northern part of Los Angeles, and we do a bunch of work, sometimes with real estate people and sometimes with other businesses, and helping them build their brand online through some pretty authentic relationship building strategies. Gotcha.
Now, New Zealand and California are very far from each other.
Yeah, they sure are.
How did you get from New Zealand to California?
I actually came via London. So a lot of New Zealanders, because we're a small country, we're pretty good at traveling, and at certain times of our lives we do overseas experience. So I went and spent 2 years in London, and then I sort of swung by Los Angeles for some business reasons, and I just ended up staying.
Gotcha.
I think I like the weather. I don't enjoy the rain, so Los Angeles is a great place if you don't like rain.
Gotcha. Now, you're in Northern or Southern California?
We're in Southern California, yeah.
Okay. Now, I hear it. There was a song a while ago, so it never rains in Southern California. Is that true?
It's a big water shortage at the moment, so at the moment it's true. They're predicting a pretty wet winter, which will be good because we need the rain.
Gotcha. So what are you doing nowadays? Or a better question, kind of tell me how your career has transitioned. You said you came to the States for business and you kind of stayed. I'm sure things have kind of transpired from the beginning of your career to where you're at now. So tell me kind of where did you start off, and kind of take us down that line of how did you get from there to here?
Well, I actually trained in a completely different profession to the one I'm in now. So I was trained as a veterinary surgeon.
Wow.
Which is very, very different to what I do, and I did that off and on for 10 years. And in the meantime, while I was doing that, I was also developing the sort of creative side of my life. So I've written screenplays and I've done various things like that. And in the process of doing that, I sort of fell in love with the internet and the power it gives people to build their own audience and to reach, really the internet gives you and I the ability to form a relationship with whoever we want anywhere in the world. And one of the reasons we struggle with engagement is that we don't actually know who it is we want to reach. So that's a big part of our sort of marketing strategies for people, is to say, well, let's make some decisions as to who you want to reach. And so as we fell in love a little more with the internet, I actually started working with a realtor who was local, and I really felt that the work that I do really fits really well with certain people in real estate, people who want to build a strong personal brand, who want to build something that's relationship-centric, not transaction-centric. So
Gotcha.
I started developing our strategies for real estate people, and it's just something I love. I kind of like the people who are drawn to real estate, and we get on well. So it's a very organic process.
Gotcha. You mentioned something interesting. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I originally am from Detroit, Michigan. And, basically grew up in the inner city. People use the term, quote unquote, hood. And I didn't know that I was growing up into the hood until I left and went to Michigan State University. And, it was one of the best experiences of my life. I had the opportunity to be there for a little bit over 4 years and got to meet a bunch of great people and to begin a bunch of great relationships. But you had mentioned that you train in veterinary science, and now you are doing, social media. And that's the beauty of life that I think that a lot of people don't really realize, is that although you may have a formal education in a particular aspect or field, that does not prevent you from excelling in a new chosen career or profession. Question for you, what gave you the courage to make that transition from veterinary science and some of the other things that you were doing to what you're doing now?
I feel as though it was pretty simple. I liked what I was doing, but it wasn't fully me. And so I just imagined my life as now it's like 22 or 23 at the time, and I imagined my life in 40 years' time. And I knew if I didn't try and do what was kind of in my heart and express myself creatively and relationally more, I'd be kind of depressed when I was 63 or 64. And so it was kind of like, well, yes, it's brave to take this risk, but it's probably riskier not to take it.
I agree with you 1,000%. I started working fresh out of college for a company called Kimberly-Clark, which, if people aren't familiar with the name, they're familiar with the brands, Huggies, Kleenex, facial tissue, and many different other products that are in our homes. And I was a buyer. And I'll be honest with you, my wife can attest to this. My first day on the job, and it was a good job. I started out there making $50,000 a year. This was like 15 years ago. It was a good job, great company. But my first day I came home, and I literally threw my briefcase to the side, and I grabbed a Carlton Sheets course that I had purchased while in college. Never looked at it. Literally had an inch of dust on it. And I started that day. It was in September 2002. Came home, and I started buying real estate. I think within a very short time, I had bought 2 or 3 residential properties, and 6 months later, 2.5 years later after that, after buying a number of properties, I had decided to go full-time, buying, selling real estate full-time, and that's what I did. And I did pretty well at it for a couple of years until I transitioned, or the market crashed in 2007. And so that caused me to have to really, really take a different perspective on what it was that I was doing, because I'm sure you're familiar at that time. All you had to do was have a pulse, and you could buy a house. Sure. You could get financing, buy a house, flip it, and trying to make some money. And at that point, everything changed. And so I ended up getting into doing taxes. I bought into a tax franchise. It was just the amount of money that I could put my hands on, and I figured it was something that any and everybody would need, because everybody has to do taxes. And, I did that for about 7 years. And this past tax season, I had made the decision to, I had 3 stores. And you just think of H&R Block. I'm sure they have H&R Blocks out there. And so the brand that I was in was called Instant Tax, and it transitioned into something else. But I had 3 stores, was doing well, and the guy that I was working with was encouraging me to open up an additional 2 stores. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I never was 100% satisfied with the business. I always loved real estate, and I always loved people. And so I'm glad that I had the experience, because when I opened up those 2 additional stores, honestly, they failed. And so the financial expenditures that I had to invest on those 2 failing stores ended up draining the resources from the 3 profitable stores that I had. So it ended up with I ended up with a net close to nothing. And like yourself, I had to sit down and say, all right, what is it that I really enjoy doing? What is it do I really want to do with the rest of my life? I've never been a person that's been motivated by money. And I think that, one of the slides that you and I go over a little bit later, it talks about, don't go after the money. And honestly, I don't work with people because of the amount of money that they can pay me. I work with people because I simply like them. And I like their vision that they have for their business, and I want to help them out. But to sum it up, that's how I got back into real estate. And I decided to use my experience from, running small businesses, realizing that marketing is really about the relationship with another human being, period. And maintaining that relationship with that other human being and letting them know what it is that you can do to help them, as well as connect them with other people and other resources that could help them as well. And so that's how I got into doing real estate success. It's like, hey, here's an industry that I know. Here are, I know that the professional in real estate, the real estate agent or mortgage broker, et cetera, they have a need to be able to market themselves like themselves. I call it creatively, but in reality, when you are marketing yourself as yourself, it's not creative. It's just simply who you were meant or who you were sent here to be. And we've gotten a lot of success with that so far. We have a newsletter that is in conjunction with the podcast show, and it's all in the beta processes. So we got a couple of people that are going to be coming online here in the next week or so with their own podcast show, and our newsletter is going to be going out, and it's a monthly thing that goes out, and it gives people creative marketing strategies and tips for their business, kind of centered around podcasts, hosting a podcast show, which is kind of the foundation of what we do. And adding postcards and social media posts to that, because a postcard is nothing but a social media post without a U.S. postage stamp on it. And and that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing now. So I kind of ran through my spiel. So tell me a little bit about where you're at now with 7sentences.com, some of the other things that you have going on. I want our audience to really, really get a full understanding of what it is that you do.
Okay, so I started the 7-Sentence blog in 2009.
Okay.
And I think we've written, 2,000 plus posts on that. And the idea behind that was to write 7 sentences pretty much every day. I haven't written them for a while because my dad passed away 4 weeks ago. So
sorry to hear that.
Been dealing with some other things in regards to that. But yeah, the idea with that is that we would write 7 sentences every day on branding, marketing. Really, behind everything we do is the desire to bring our audience and bring ourselves back to finding out what matters most and working from that place of what matters most. So how you express yourself online as a realtor. Are you really dealing with what matters most to you? And that's different for every person. So once you find out what matters most, then knowing what you're going to post on social media, who you're looking to form relationships with, what you're going to blog about becomes a lot easier because you're not trying to guess what the market wants or copy what somebody else does. You're working from a real place of authenticity. And so the goal of 7 sentences was to give somebody something very small to read every day that would inspire them. And so you can read it in less than a minute. We've got, at one point, I don't know if it's still the case, but we had readers in 100 different countries in the world. So it was a really, it's a really popular short blog. And we have a number of other contributors as well now. So that was the journey of 7 sentences. And at the moment, I'm in the process of setting up a new site and a new business called The Genuine Agency, which is specifically for people in real estate.
Okay.
And in helping them, express what matters most via their own social media profiles and digital profiles, their own blog, their own website, and just been really genuine and remarkable.
Gotcha.
And so that's in development and will be probably up in the next couple of weeks. But
okay.
The way we tend. Yeah, go
on. No, you finished. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, the way we typically work with realtors is we take your business goals and see exactly what they are for say a 12-month period, and then we transfer them into relationship goals. So in particular, we're looking at conversations with the general principle behind any selling career is that if you talk to people, you'll sell. If you don't talk to people, you won't. And so let's have some goals of, getting you talking to people, and then who are the people that you really should be talking to. And so we do a lot of work with our clients on actually being really specific about these are the kinds of people who belong at the dinner table of my brand. You'd be happy with them sitting down at your table, having a meal, people who would become lifetime partners with you, who you would refer other people to them if they're in business, and they would refer people to you. So everything we do is about helping you to find those conversations with the right people using social media and the digital space as part of it. But our strategies really merge online and offline completely together because it should be the same thing. The medium is just different. That's all. Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned that at the end about the conversation being the same. And I think that a lot of times, it sounds like you spent a lot of time, probably a lot of money, with doing some research from marketing, et cetera, and what really matters. I as well. And you said it. I mean, you right there in terms of the conversation is no different online or offline. Online or offline is simply the medium in which you are exchanging information and you are exchanging conversation with your targeted audience. So whether you're using a direct mail piece, whether you're using social media, whether you're using Facebook, Twitter, etc., once you find your message, and then once you find who that message conforms to and who is going to have an interest in that message, then you said it. Your marketing really, really becomes easy because all you're doing is marketing yourself.
Sure.
You're marketing yourself. One thing that you mentioned earlier about 7 sentences, let me back you up to that a little bit. So basically the whole premise was for you to start out just writing 7 sentences a day on a particular subject?
Sure.
Wow. And that would take you how long to generate 7 sentences on a particular subject, usually? And you could be honest.
Well, okay, so there were some days I can do it in 7 minutes. So that's often a challenge for me to write pretty quickly. I'm a pretty intuitive person, so when I sit down and I don't know what I'm going to write, that's when the best stuff comes out. We do all sorts of things, and we work on this with our clients, but sometimes batch writing is a good way to blog. So you sort of take a day and you'll write, in our case, write 20 blog posts and then schedule them out. So you save a lot of time.
Absolutely.
By grouping your tasks together, no matter what they are. So doing your marketing on one day of the week and scheduling and all that sort of stuff. I can write. We try and the great thing about 7 sentences is when you create a framework around what it is you have to say, and you say, look, I've only got 7 sentences to make this point. You have to be very creative, and you have to really say what you mean. So the constraint of giving yourself a set amount of words is actually quite empowering, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. I do. You're helping me. I mean, honestly, 7 sentences is what I'm going to be shooting for, and my blogs and my writings, because I have a lot of crap that'll be in my head on a particular subject matter. And my wife and I'm always pushing her and having her challenge me, like, help me be more concise, because when I'm more concise, it becomes more clear, and I say much more with less words. And it sounds like that's what you were going for with the concept of 7 sentences.
Yeah, it forces you to concentrate on what matters most, because you don't have a lot of fluff to in your intro or your outro or anything like that. You just have to say it. And sometimes we'll use that as an exercise. We'll say things like, Michael, if I were to put a video camera in front of you right now and tell you that you had 1 minute left to live on this earth and you got to give us a message, what would you say?
Wow. That's powerful.
What would you say? And there's a lot of stuff that we think we would say that we wouldn't say, and so it sort of strips away our voice to our core. What really matters most to you.
No, you that's powerful on business level, as well as a personal level. I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but I am, and that resonates with me on a very spiritual level because, if I had 1 minute to say my last words as, my vehicle on earth was parting, I wouldn't mention anything about money. I wouldn't mention anything about what I watched on TV. And, my wife and I, we watched The Walking Dead last night. And I don't know if you're a fan. It was awesome. But that wouldn't come up in my conversation. My last minute would be about what matters most. The friends that I've had and the experiences that highlight in my mind that I'm appreciative for. And then my good wishes and good favors to those who I'm leaving behind. So you said it, the power of shortness or brevity causes you to really, really get down to what matters most. Wow. So let me ask you, as we transition the conversation, let me ask you this. When you're working with real estate professionals, what have you seen them talk about from the standpoint of what matters most when they're talking to their audience, and how have they been able to translate that into 7 sentences, if that's kind of like what you're training them to do?
I don't train them to write in 7 sentences. I train them to communicate in a medium that's most effective for them.
Okay.
And in a format that is remarkable. So part of what we look at doing is saying, okay, let's just not be another realtor with a blog that's talking about, about, property prices and what to do with your house before you list it. Let's know more about your audience than that. Let's know about what they love to do, what stresses them out, what problems they have, and really connect more on an emotional level. So a couple of questions when it comes to, say, creating blog content that we kind of work through with people, and that is every piece of content has to be written for a specific person. So
when you say a specific person, you mean an individual, or are you talking about a specific?
I mean an individual. So I do this with all the posts that I write. I'll choose someone who I have some kind of strong emotional feeling for due to an interaction in the past 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it'll even be myself. Okay. Sometimes it'll be a family member. Sometimes it'll be a business colleague. Someone I feel something for, and I let that feeling drive the writing or the video. Now, even if I'm giving away information about something, there's an emotional reason for giving away the information, and it's specifically focused on one person. Now, what I'm not doing is I don't have their name in there. I'm not talking about anything personal on a specific level. I just know that it's something that I'm giving them. This piece of content is a gift to them. And so when they read it, and this happens a lot, when a wider audience reads it, I'll often get the emails back from a number of people who say, wow, man, that felt like you wrote that specifically for me. And wow. And that shows that you're connecting and that you're engaging your audience. And, it's actually what a newsreader does when they look down the camera. They're imagining that they're talking to a member of their family at home, and everybody else watching the news, even though we don't verbally say this, but we feel a connection with the newsreader, and we say, I like the way that person reads the news, because it feels like they're really talking to you. Absolutely. And so the same thing happens in written content too. And I mean, funnily enough, every now and then, actually the person who I wrote it for will email me and say, it felt like you were talking directly to me. And I never tell them that I actually was. But
gotcha.
So that's one thing that we work on with our clients with their blogging. It's been really specific. And then always has to have an emotional hook. So one thing I think many real estate professionals struggle with is that they give out really good information, but information by itself is somewhat boring and dry.
Yes.
So why is this information important? We buy property on emotion, so why are you giving information without emotion? And so it has to matter, and that's why, again, when you know why it matters most, it's easier to find that emotional hook. So we see our clients connecting a lot more with their audience through their blogs, and we have another, a bunch of other relational strategies, which is to sort of start getting them to involve their clients and their lifetime supporters of their brand, people who really belong at the dinner table of their brand. We try and get them involved in the creation of the content too, so you're kind of building a community with your blog, which is really important.
Wow. I'm learning so much. I hope that our listeners are learning a lot from you. It makes a lot of sense. My whole reason for real estate success and trying to get people to start a podcast, as well as with postcards, is because, one, you want to be able to connect with someone in a much more emotional way. Mm-hmm. And you can never receive the amount of emotion that someone has in their writing via a blog. You can receive that via their voice. You can hear someone, and you can hear their enthusiasm, you can hear their sincerity, you can hear their joy and excitement about a particular subject matter with your voice. And now here's the beauty of it, because with our podcast and what we're training folks, it doesn't stop at the podcast. You simply hit one button, and now that podcast turns into a blog post or a letter via transcription service. It's extremely cost effective, but even more importantly, it's extremely time effective, because you can call into a number, you can simply start talking on a particular subject matter, you hit star 9 to end it. Now you have a podcast post. If you had someone on with you, you got an interview. If you were recording your screen, now you have a webinar, but all at one particular time. And then a simple translation turns it into multiple different products all at once. And just the fact of you mentioning about being able to really, really talk to an individual on a particular subject matters, I think makes blogging or podcasting or whatever it is that you're doing from a content creation standpoint easier, period.
Sure.
Because you're talking to one person. I'm looking at this and I'm talking to Geoff. Yes, I'm going to put it out there to the world. I'm going to put it out there to the world, but I'm talking to Geoff. And so my mind is not scattered. And my creativity and the energy behind my creativity is no longer scattered. It's all about Geoff, or it's about Tony, or it's about, Kim, or whatever the case may be. And so it makes doing content creation a lot easier. So, wow. Thanks for that, man. You opened up a lot with that. So let me ask you, with your clients, do they literally, and I know this is probably a dumb question, and I've been accused of being a dumb guy before, so you can add to the list.
I think we learn from asking dumb questions, man. We should ask more of them.
I agree. So you tell your clients to write 7 sentences per blog post, period. You don't.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. That's our format. What we look at doing, and it's interesting because you talked a little bit about like different mediums, webinars, podcasts, video, written blogs, and you know what? There are some. We all have different creative skill sets, so we're always looking to say, you know what? What's your best medium for you? What are the best mediums? Because sometimes it's more than one. And some people are just absolutely brilliant at writing, but put them on video, and it's a lot of work to get them to a place where they feel comfortable. I'm not saying you shouldn't do something because you don't feel comfortable, but they're natural. They just have a gift for words and for writing. Other people, great talkers, absolutely great at talking, feel more comfortable on the phone than on video. Well, podcasting's great for them. Yep. Some people, I have one client, he's not a realtor, but he's in Paris, absolutely fantastic on video. He's fantastic because he practices and does it a lot, but not so strong on writing. We're just getting him to write now and just seeing how that goes. So because you're putting yourself out there without the full context, of who you are, and sometimes it is going to be your first impression with potential buyers and sellers or clients. You're wanting to put it you're wanting to make your best and most authentic impression. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect.
True.
But if you're not a good writer, then writing a blog just because you've been told by some social media guru that you need to write a blog twice a week, that it needs to be between 600 and 800 words, have 2 images, and be optimized in this way. That's a terrible idea if you're not a good writer, because that's going to leave a bad first impression. You might be better off to be doing cute little videos. There's one guy I'm talking with who does great video. I'm like, do a video blog. And then with the format, again, what I'm looking at doing, I don't want everyone to write in 7 sentences. I think it's a useful exercise, but I don't even always write in 7 sentences. I think what we're asking is, what will be remarkable for you? What will put you on the edge? What will make your podcast, if you're doing a podcast, different than every other podcast? What will make your video? And so format is part of remarkability, and it should be matched to your communication style. So what will make this podcast even more remarkable? And I'm not trying to help you or market you here, but sometimes we have to sit down and come up with some really crazy ideas to find something that positions you on the edge that's fun. Like, if you have a particular personality as a realtor, for example, where, you like to whinge and complain, and like you're just that kind of, maybe you're based out in New York or in Chicago or where the weather's bad, and you've just got this kind of irascible personality. Well, maybe you should do it like a video series, which are like 1-minute rants about property that are hilarious and funny, because that's who you are. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. So yeah, absolutely.
We want to really look at the personality of the person and their natural communication styles, and see if we can come up with a format and a structure, not just the content, but a format and structure that kind of positions them as being unique. You're obviously, for one thing, I can tell with you, you're a real conversationist, and you're interested in other people. So this format, the Mo Show, you're kind of playing off your name. It's really cool, right? Like it's fun. So I like it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. You know what? I've always been told that I had the voice for radio. I should do radio, and radio honestly was always my dream job. And for the past 7 years, I'm like, if I could do radio, how would I do it? I've always thought of going down to, a station. But for 4 months out of the year, I can't, because I'm busy running my tax office, et cetera. And being put into the most recent predicament in which I was, in terms of with 2 offices failing and the finances being a drain on the performing stores, it caused me to get to this point to where I'm really, really doing what it is, what I've always said I wanted to do. People have always have told me I was good at. I've always been a good conversationalist, and I'll tell you how I've developed that skill set. As a child, it's probably around maybe somewhere between 8th grade and 9th grade, when I actually got on the phone with the other sex. I would write down questions that I would ask when the conversation started to transition or go dry. And I remember those questions like they were yesterday. And they're so ingrained in my psyche and my personality that I just do it. It's just who I am. So when I meet people, I never meet a stranger, because number one, I always look for something. It could be the 3rd button on your shirt. I look for something that I like. And I always try to compliment people, simply because compliments you can never give too many compliments. They simply make people feel good, and they make you feel good. And it's an icebreaker to find out how you and that person could be a benefit to each other's lives. And so, you make the very point about, and you made that point earlier, about really being in touch with folks who, in essence, get you, who understand you, who relate to you. Now, let me ask you this question, Geoff. And I'm sure you've heard clients ask you this question. What do you do in terms of those folks who are turned off and they don't like it that you're the ranty real estate agent who's talking about, talking about the crazy stuff and ranting, et cetera? That doesn't appeal to some people. So how do you coach that guy on those situations?
Well, it all comes back to the ultimate goal of your brand, which is to build long-term, lifelong, even mutual relationships with people who you've done. You may do some transactions with them. You may not. They're just big fans of yours. You're big fans of them. And so that's the ultimate goal of every activity, and the way that you live your life is to build a very relational, people-centric brand. And so much like dating, you're going to meet some people at the beginning that you think are perfect, and then you ask them a couple of questions, and their views are so contradictory to yours, or their personality style is just almost offensive, that there is really no point persisting with the relationship. So whilst you are building your brand, you may do some transactions with people. They may pop up who are less than your ideal people. You don't really love working with them, but you do it for your cash flow. That may happen, and of course you'll just do a great professional job with them, and it'll be fine. But there's no point marketing your brand towards people who are going to steal your time and your energy and are just not completely right for you. So part of the system and methodology that we work with is about, yes, you have to, you don't know who someone is when you first meet them, so you have to build rapport and get to know them. And along the way, either one of you will decide, or both, that you don't really belong together. And there's no point persisting in building the relationship, because it's never going to be a productive one. And so an analogy we often use is it's kind of like a game of tennis, where you either want to be at the back of the court meeting people, or you want to be at the front of the court at the net, where you're working with people that you know very well and very deeply and you really care about. The worst place to be in a game of tennis is at the middle of the court, because you can get past really easily. So I think of the middle of the court as spending a lot of time, energy, money, marketing, building relationships with people who don't really belong at the center of your brand. And so, that's different for every person, and there's enough. There are enough of your people out there. We don't want to take a sort of scarcity mindset. There are so many people who totally will get you when you're fully being you. And, and it's different. Like for some people, it's not, and I would say I'm one of these people. If I look at who belongs in the center of my brand, I'm pretty tolerant of people with different views on, say, political things, even though I strongly know which ones I believe. But what I find really hard is people who are very intolerant of a different view.
There you
and
go.
So I like people who really strongly believe what they believe, but are open to having a conversation about it. So if I'm bumped up to people who are like so sure they're right, will try and convince me that I'm wrong in a kind of unhealthy way, then I'm not really going to persist in a relationship with them, whether it's on social media or offline. I'm not going to necessarily unfriend them. I'm just not going to put much more energy into it. And I'm totally fine with that. And I think they are too, actually. And if they're not, well, I mean, that's just life. And if you talked about it in a relational setting, if you were dating someone and you decided that it wasn't really right and they didn't, and they kept persisting, well, they would be, you would say they were stalking you. So you would unfriend that person. So,
Oh, man, you oh, man, we could talk for hours. I know we got to begin to transition off here, but you said something that totally resonated with me. Working in your business, whether you're a real estate agent, a mortgage professional, whether you sell pickles at a pickle shop, there will be some people that you do not get along with, and that's life, and that's okay. And the quicker you find that out, the quicker you are able to make their life and your life much more simpler, because you can easily decide not to do business with. And I think that a lot of real estate professionals don't do well, and I'm sure you know that it's a high turnover rate within the real estate industry. And I think that a lot of them leave, and then a lot don't do well, sell well below sell well below the averages or a sustainable income standpoint in terms of real estate, is because they're busy trying to be everybody's realtor from a logistical standpoint and from a personality standpoint, and that they don't realize that sometimes turning away business enables you to get to business a lot sooner with those who you're meant to do business with. I always tell people, I don't want to do business with everybody. I don't. If I don't like you, I don't want to do business with you. I don't care how much the check is, because there's going to be an emotional strain. I want to always deliver my best. And if I can't deliver my best to you, then we don't need to do business. But here's a name and a number of somebody who possibly could help you. Or here's a website or an address of somebody who could help you. And if you need some more, keep my cell phone, keep my email address and my Twitter and all that. Contact me if you need help. But we're just not going to decide to do business together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that you hit that.
Yeah. And the other thing about it too is as the clearer you become about who belongs at your dinner table, the faster it is to find those people online. And I know it's one of my talking points is like taking an active rather than a passive approach to social media. And so if you clearly know, okay, these 6 to 8 demographics and psychographics, these kinds of people belong at my dinner table. The more you know about them, the easier they are to find. And so many real estate professionals will tell me, look, I'm just not getting the engagement I need. And, what they're really saying is when I put my posts out there, no one's liking them.
Exactly.
Now, you're not really after engagement if that's your attitude. Maybe you are, but you're really after affirmation. That's something different. If you're really after engagement, then you can go and engage if you know who you're looking for. You can go and comment on somebody else's post. You can friend them. You can follow them. You can initiate the relationship. It's just that again, the analogy I use is like, don't be the girl or the guy sitting at the bar looking lonely, having a drink, hoping that someone will come up and talk to you. Like, it might happen, but it probably won't. If you really want the relationship, be the person that goes and introduces yourself. Stick out your hand. And you can only do that from a time expense output if you become very clear as to who you're trying to engage with at any one point in time. And too often we're just too broad and we're too wide, and it becomes impossible to take that approach. So we just do what we've been told. We write our 2 blog posts, our 600 to 800 words again, and we pop them out on social media, and then we complain that no one's noticing us. And it's,
it's counterproductive. But no, you're right. And honestly, here's what even happens. They don't do the 600 to 800 word blog. They don't do anything. They just continue to do, the basics that everybody else is doing, and they wonder why they don't get much success. So what I wanted to do before we transition off the call, you had sent a couple of points over to me about, just a couple of things that you wanted to highlight on today's call. So I wanted to give us the opportunity to review those. The first one you mentioned is why the relationship and not the transaction should be the ultimate goal of your business. So talk about that a little bit for me.
Well, I feel like the goal for any real estate professional is to make their business as easy as possible. And the best way to do that is for you to have a large number of a large number of advocates out there in the community referring you to others. And so for me, that's the goal, is to have a large referral brand where you creating the kinds of experiences and the kinds of content that get other people talking about you and saying, you need to work with so-and-so. And just as an example of this, I've loosely worked with a local doctor in our area, and he is the kindest, most incredible human being. And he's reasonably active on social media. But I was telling a friend about him who hadn't heard of him at all, and then when I told my friend where his office was, he said, oh, he's the kind doctor that everybody talks about. Gotcha. And I just thought, wow, like the word of mouth spread that this man has got from really stepping outside of the box of a normal patient-doctor relationship has been amazing. Like people are writing posts saying, people who work with him, like his nurses, saying, the reason I work with this doctor is because on Saturday I watched him sit with a patient for an hour and walk them to the toilet and hold their hand while they use the toilet. And it's like, nobody does that, but he does it. And so now people are telling that story, and I'm telling you, and this is going online, so it's amazing how, like, the goal of his business, in a way, is so meshed with what matters most to him.
Yep.
But when he lives that way, and it's so putting the people first, it's not about making money.
Yep.
Like, he's creating a remarkable experience, and that stories are getting spread everywhere. So when the relationship is what matters most, and you serve the relationship, you're just going to be creating these kinds of stories that will just, over a period of time, build up a huge referral network. And so I would ask people who are listening to this podcast, what would happen if you doubled the number of people out there in the next 12 months who were referring you to others? You know, if you just doubled it, and it's taking, like, probably in some cases it's taking 25 to 50, and it could have a huge effect on your business because they're doing the marketing and selling for you, both online and off.
Yep. You know, we call them ambassadors at Real Estate Success, and it's a term and a functionality we're going to be rolling out here in the next couple of weeks. But I understand, I think I sent you a text message or an email saying, I see you and you see me. 100% on point with that. When you build ambassadors, they market for you. So you don't have to, you continue the market, but these are people that are marketing for you. You had another point here, taking an active rather than a passive approach to social media. What do you mean by that?
Again, I mentioned that just a few minutes ago. That's like, again, being the person who, you know, you do the marketing work, and we help people do that. Like, choose the demographics, the psychographs that you're going to really target. Narrow that down to relationship goals, and then go out there and make those conversations and have the strategies in place where you can have permission, to form those relationships. You can talk to whoever you want to online. So let's decide who belongs at the dinner table of your brand, and then go out there and invite them in, you know, rather than just hoping you get noticed.
That's true. And then authenticity is not enough. What do you mean by that? Because if you're being yourself, if you're being authentic, why is that not enough?
Well, okay, here I'm going to be a little bit funny, but I know some people who are kind of boring or uninteresting in their personalities, and so they're being authentically boring or uninteresting. Or we might know some people who are reasonably dishonest, and so they could be authentically dishonest. So I like to say, you know, and I've heard people speak in public, for example, who'll stand up and they won't put any emotion, any passion, any effort into what they're saying. They just stand up and talk because they think that's authentic. And I would rather that they were being less authentic, which sounds weird, and remarkable, than just authentic. So I always say, yes, be authentic, but let's also be remarkable. Let's find a remarkable way of expressing your voice. And that's, you know, we look at that being on every social media profile. Like, what's remarkable about your Twitter profile? What's remarkable about your Facebook page? Like, why would another person say, who's not currently in a real estate phase of their life, say, man, you need to follow X, you need to follow this person on Twitter because. And to be honest, most clients who come to us, they don't have that yet. They can't say, they don't have a strong enough reason for why someone should follow them. And so that's a creative process. Like, let's create a little, like, sub-brand of your brand here that is very entertaining or plays to one of your creative strengths. Remarkability is very important.
I agree with you. And here is my thought or my 2 cents on that. Most human beings are afraid to be remarkable. They're afraid to be who they truly are, simply because they are afraid of the response from those who don't get it and who don't like it. And once you get past that, once you realize that those people just aren't meant to be sitting at your dinner table, then your world opens up to you, because you can simply be remarkable to who you are truly meant to be remarkable to. And, you know, that guy who gets up there and who talks, you know, in the monotone, and he sounds like a cardboard box with a mouth on his speech, is simply because he's afraid to show any other aspect of who he is, because he's afraid that the people in the audience won't think he's professional, won't think he's knowledgeable, won't think that he's worth doing business with. And in reality, it's the other way around. You know, be yourself, be remarkable, and those people who don't get it, professionally, gracefully excuse them to the door, and those who are left are those people who you would be able to bring the most benefit to. So as we're getting off the call here, I wanted to touch on this last slide about don't be impressed and do be impressed. Talk about that for 15, 20 seconds for me, and then let people know how they can get in contact with you and to work with you if they'd like to.
Okay, so don't be impressed by money, followers, degrees, titles. Do be impressed by generosity, integrity, humility, and kindness. And I would say that really does sum up a lot about who I am. And actually, I mentioned my dad who passed away recently, and this was definitely something I inherited from him. And so for me, that's like, just get to the heart of the matter. Like, who are you really? And for some of us, we have to pull away a few masks, or we have to sit with ourselves for a while and say, these things on the left, money, followers, degrees, and titles, there's nothing wrong with them. But sometimes they take over, and we sort of forget about what's really important. And life's short, you know. We don't want to have regrets. So let's stay in that place of what matters most, really, to us, and not get sidetracked or tempted or deceived away towards placing those other things sort of in the forefront of our vision. So, you know, this would be something that we would really look at encouraging our clients towards in the way they express their voice. And to work with us, honestly, send me an email, Geoff@sevensentences.com. That's SEVEN, sentences, spelt like sentences.com. And we'll just have a talk, and we'll just see if it would be a good fit. And I'll take you through the way that we work with people in real estate. I will always talk with people just to get to know them and build a relationship and see if they're right for us and we're right for them. So no pressure selling on our part. We just want to make sure that we can do good work together. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Mo.
No problem. I appreciate you. I'm definitely going to send you an invite. There are a lot of things that I wanted to go into, but we just didn't have the time. And also for the listeners out there, Geoff is a contributor to Lab Coats. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about this, but I read one of his recent blogs, and it was outstanding. And so, again, you guys who are interested in wanting to be able to develop a more authentic relationship with your audience and needing someone and a platform and a way to help you do that, please get in contact with Geoff. And with Geoff, with that being said, I appreciate your time, buddy. And you have a good one, and you're always welcome on the Mo Show.
Thanks so much, Michael. It was my privilege.
All right. So with that being said, that is another edition of the Mo Show here on the Real Estate Success Network. I'm your host, Mike Godin, and you guys make it a great day.